go, my friends. I had a troop. I wasn't scared to go this time. Uh, we went in the fall, and I remember it was cold. It was getting cold. It had to be October. Most of the trees had turned and were shedding their leaves. It looked like it was going to be an early winter that year. I remember my dad saying. And I should mention, like anybody that grew up in the area, you heard all kinds of stories from your parents and other people that went there. And like I said, the three different reasons people went up there still existed then. I believe when it became a mental institution after it was closed in the 60s, finally, uh, after the tuberculosis hospital closed, it became a mental institution. And it was recent history when that was finally closed
I
down.
believe
So
they only closed that down in what, the early '80s or
I
so,
believe
was
it
it?
was very early 80s. Uh, and so, people had heard about it, and that whole area had, as my mom would have said, bad hoodoo, in that whole area. Uh, so anyway, everybody's kind of primed to go for different reasons. Guys are always willing to go to show how tough they are, how long they can last, and that they are not going to get scared like all these other fellas do. Uh, so we decided to get there pretty early in the afternoon to hike in, and I wanted to see it change over tonight. And let me say that I have been slept outside in the woods with no tent many, many times with my dad as a prerequisite, you know. So being outside at night didn't scare me, but when I was watching that sunset and that deep orange light cutting through the trees and how long the shadows got, and the shadows of those trees looked blacker than black, and as that failing light was coming, I started to get worried again. I had done a protection thing on myself and my friends, uh, to protect us going in there, because I was concerned about that. That was really a real possibility. I didn't want it to attach itself to someone else or anything. And I will openly say, two of the people there thought that was hokum. They thought I was just a nutcase, that I believed all this occult stuff and that I've actually practiced all this stuff. And it was known my mother did. And, it was an open secret, basically. And, there were people that just thought I was a lunatic. And there were people that knew if it wasn't real for them, it was certainly real for me. So I just say going in, we had scoffers in the party. So as we went in there, uh, into the actual building itself, as night was coming, it was already cold, but I mean, it seemed to me that the degrees of cold were coming on really fast. Uh, I remember like stopping to put gloves on because it was starting to get cold enough, and I was worried about dropping my flashlight. I didn't want to lose it. I had paid a pretty penny for it. And almost immediately, I remember hearing some far distant laughing, and to where I thought, oh, okay, so and so had someone else come, because people did plus one. A lot of people would meet up there, and I remember that a couple more people had joined up with us by nightfall, that they had come. And, you know, I was like, okay, so someone else is here. They stayed behind and they're screwing with us. So I was totally brushed it off. I didn't even say anything about it. But the laughing, it heard to me was almost like a snickering. And it was creepy. I mean, it was loud enough. I was like, these guys are all in on this. I was like, you know what? These fellas are in on this on me. They're going to get me back for times I had said something to them about their behavior, or things they should do or not do. And they're going to play one on me. So I'm not going to let it rattle me. I'm not even going to say anything about it. Uh, I remember I got my hood pulled on. I was wearing a jacket that I much treasured that I had to this all the patches and buttons from it to this day. So that where I say that is because my jacket was really important to me. So like it was like a cloak of protection, if you will. And I remember my hood being pulled off my head twice, like hard, like somebody coming up behind you at school and doing it.
Well, the activity is immediately hostile.
Oh yeah, I mean, I did not like that. Because that's why I was having these ideas that these guys are in on are going to play a trick on me. That this, because it was actually kind of in your, kind of a hostility that was in your face. So I was thinking, okay, these guys are just in on this, and they're gonna, have a go at me. So I was really trying not to say anything, and I wasn't going to act afraid. And I remember a friend of mine was with another person they had brought that was one of the scoffers I mentioned. And I remember he was pointing a light down the hallway, and I was walking nearby, and I didn't like what he was saying. He was just saying some really nasty things, and that this is all BS, and people believing ghosts are stupid and all, and
Oh my goodness, you're the guy in the horror movie
yeah.
who's gonna get it the worst.
Well, here it gets worse because of what I say to him. I can't help myself, and I come up behind him and I kind of just gently say, "Well, some folks shine, some don't. Some places shine, some don't." And I turned away on my heel, and the guy said, as soon as I had done that, a figure from the very end of the hall came running, rushing
Like,
towards him.
well, for comic book fans, I always imagine it's like a Wolverine rush.
Yes, like a Wolverine rush.
Arms forward.
It had its arms out, actually,
Yeah, out.
fully extended, fingers out and everything, running towards him. Enough to where he grabbed the guy I actually knew more well by the shoulder and said, "Oh my God, did you see that?" And later, the friend told me afterwards that the guy blamed me. He said it was like a curse when she said that to me. When she said that.
Well, they were just, those kind of things are just playing along.
Oh yes,
I've heard that so many times about them. They like to rush up in people's face, and some people just faint right out.
Yeah, I mean, this was a shadow man. Like what I know now, this was a full-on shadow man. I knew it had been an apparition at the time, but I still thought these guys might be screwing with me a little bit. So I didn't, I knew he got scared, but I thought, because the friend that was standing right next to him said they saw a shadow, and that's it. They didn't see a figure, but this guy saw a full-on figure, arms extended out the length of the hallway, like its fingers could touch the walls.
Well,
And that's as it was described. And I heard the most details from the friend that was standing there that told me afterwards, because that guy didn't want me around ever again after that. Well, yeah, he totally just attached it to me. I didn't really,
well, they're working everybody in this situation.
Oh, absolutely. I mean, it's kind of funny like that. I notice with hauntings and everything, it affects people differently. And I had more personal experience with things like this later on. You have to listen to the Shadow Man interview where I talk about what actually happened to my family and stuff later on. But in any case, so that was pretty bad. And I remember we came to a bank of lockers, and most of them had the doors torn off or were messed up. And of course, one of my friends walks right up to locker 13 and starts really pulling on the lock. It was like one it had a like one of those pull things, like a pull latch. I don't, it's
Slide
a
latch.
slide latch. Yeah, I don't know what it's exactly called, but uh, and they had obviously a more recent addition from when it was a mental hospital and stuff for the elderly with dementia issues. And he kept really pulling on it. And I was like, well, man, maybe you ought to not do that. Might want to leave that alone. Well, we end up leaving that be and we move on. And I get breathing on my back and on my neck the entire time I was in this corridors and stuff. Because basically, the idea is everybody wants to see room 502. We do the you do a basic sweep of the levels and go up and then go back down. And then the the cherry on the Sunday is to go to the body shoot, which is actually out back of the main building. And it's actually a long corridor where they used to transport the bodies through. And there's steps. And on one side there's steps, and on the other side it's like where you would have rolled a gurney or some kind of
Oh yeah, I've seen
yeah,
those
yeah.
photos.
Anybody who's familiar with this subject, you've seen the photos. Needless to say, at night that is far creepier than the pictures portray it. Because even with the flash of a camera, there's some comfort when you see the image illuminated. Well, one of the things you're supposed to do is, can you walk to the very end of it with no flashlight and all that. And I was just like, well, I'm not going to do that. That's really stupid. Those are stairs there, and that's the last thing I need is to break an
Yeah, you don't
ankle.
want to do your sensory deprivation experiment on a
Yeah,
set of stairs in the dark.
yeah, and I didn't need to prove to be a badass at this point, So I was like, nah, I'm gonna be using my flashlight. That's totally fine. And two people broke off from where we were and decided to go back to the main building where these other people were still messing around, going up and down and digging around. And uh, I did see the mortuary area and you know, where the well, for lack of better words, where the freezer would have been, or the store bodies and all that. I did go in there, and it is really creepy. But I didn't actually, nothing actually happened to me in there. I was just really saddened and grossed out by the whole thing, thinking about all those people and the suffering, and it was really psychically overwhelming to me. So I did go to those places, but I did not have anything happen. I already mentioned the things that actually happened. At this point, something really bad happened to me. We go to the end, as far as you can go. Now, since then, I've seen that they've put up different gates and blockages so that you can't go all the way to the exact end.
Doesn't it empty out what's outside,
Yeah,
basically?
well, the way I heard it, that it was supposed that there's the actual chute where they used to place bodies to empty out on the other side. Like, this is a walkway, so I don't know why people always say like this is the chute. It's like this is an actual walkway of transporting the corpses and stuff. At the very end was supposed to be the an actual what you would call a chute or whatnot. Well, at this point, we get to as far as we can go, and there's indeed a hole and what appears to be some kind where something used to be, either the the slide, however you want to call it. And it didn't seem, now I don't, I can't say was that the actual one from back in the day. I don't know, but there was the actual place as far as we could go. And anyway, so I look at my friend and I'm like, okay. I was just like, well, I guess we ought to meet back up and everything. I forget the actual things we were saying.
It was a long time ago.
Well, yeah, but anyway, but I'll never forget this. We picked up a rock, and I think he said something like, "No," he's like, "None of this is really anything to worry about anyway. People just scare themselves." Tosses the rock into the darkness, and I'm thinking, well, maybe he's right. And then, boop, the same rock. And if it's not the same rock, it looked just like the one he tossed. Comes back and lands at our feet. I grab his hand and we haul ass out of there.
Yeah, that's a
That
pretty
was
direct.
enough. I was just like, oh my God, no way.
That is pretty direct.
Oh, I mean, so if it fell from the ceiling or something, I mean, I guess that's possible, but it did it at such a right time, and the angle it seemed to land at,
Well, I
you
don't think we need to
know.
explain it away given the place.
Well, yeah, but that was enough. I started to hit, like I said, we hauled ass out of that area, and we were going back to the main building, and a couple of those people had had a couple more minor things happen. And then I think the worst part after the rock was this, when we were meeting up with the last group, last part of the party, I'll say, which, we were breaking the rules again by splitting the party. We're not supposed to do that, I've heard it said. And anyway, as we were telling them about what just happened, and they were like, "Oh, what? No, whatever," And then another group is telling about what just happened to them, and I said, "You know, I have enough. I was like, I've had enough for now. I think we ought to get out of here." I was starting to I was gonna make my exit, whoever wanted to come with me or not, and then I looked to the room because there's rooms on either side. And I look to a room and I see eyes. I see a pair of glowing eyes.
What color?
These were red.
No. Does that sound familiar to anybody?
Well, let me
Or
also.
maybe it's not quite as well understood that a lot of people have said that, like especially people who've had long-term experiences with shadow people have said eventually they saw their eyes and that they're glowing red.
Yes, these look like a cartoon, like two wide almond shaped eyes that opened and was looking at me. And
That's when I'd have a little cartoon sound and I'd make my silhouette, my template would be left in the air and I'd be gone.
exactly. Well, it was like even now it takes my breath away remembering it because I'm vividly remembering this whole experience. I've seen many animals in the dark, and I know the different color eye shine different animals have, and I fully admit I've been startled by raccoons and possums and everything else at night. So I can admit if an animal spooks me. This was no animal. These eyes were huge, and it scared me to death. I don't even think I could scream. I was so scared. And I grabbed my friend as I was started to just propel myself forward. I mean, I was just like you
You're running
said.
out. You're running out of there.
Yeah, I was getting out of there now. Enough's enough. And other people must have seen something similar because I know another female that was there screamed like one of those horror movie screams, and she was gone. She was in front of me now, and I'm like,
She only has to be faster than you.
yeah, exactly. So I had my backpack on and I was holding tight to it. And what's a reason I mention that is because as we were running through this corridor, I started feeling a jerking on the handle part of my backpack, and it jerked me hard twice. And I remember when I should back up a second and say when that rock thing happened, it scared me bad enough. I said a prayer, but I, like I said, I was raised a pagan and all this, so I'm trying to explain why I would have said this. I said a prayer to Anubis because that's what I had been taught by my mother. Because Anubis is supposed to be the guardian of the underworld and all that. So that's just like asking Satan to help you, basically. I didn't know that. I thought there was a big difference, and there's not. It doesn't matter whether you're talking about Anubis, you're talking about Satan. Lord of the Underworld ought to be clear enough, but
It doesn't sound good.
well, yes, but at the time it was I thought it was like a charm. It was something that would work. So I had said that in the shoot area and then run away, and then this red eye thing has happened, and as it's pulling on my something's pulling on my backpack hard, and I can see everybody we came with and everybody that showed up, so it's not someone behind me that I know. I said something to the effect of, Jesus, I just want to go home. I know I said something to that effect. I don't remember if I said just Jesus or Jesus Christ. I just want to go home. And finally, I said the right thing. That was the only good thing I've done this whole time. The right thing I've done. And we got out of there. And the story isn't quite over yet, but we get into the woods. We get to an area we had stopped before, and we were having a small discussion, making sure everybody had their stuff. And uh, I remember one of the people said, "I took a rock from in there," and I said, "You did what?" And he just said, "Oh yeah." He's like, "Oh, it's no big deal. Who cares? It's like it's." I was
You're
like,
talking about the rock that was thrown, right?
it might have been because they went to the uh back to that chute area. So it could have been that rock. I'm not positive on that part. But anyway, it was a rock from in there. And, I was like, well, you really ought to just throw it back right now and get rid of it while I was just like, that's a really bad idea. Do you need to be told anymore? It happened to everybody. You know, I, I can't attest to what every single person saw, but enough had happened, I thought he would be convinced. And he wasn't. And I guess we are far enough from the danger at that point to get brave again. And he just put it in his bag, and I was just like, shook my head like I'm shaking right now. And what's really weird is that that guy had a whole lot of problems and did some strange things uh, after that. And I personally had a whole lot of turmoil in my life after this point. There's a whole lot of bad things that happened. But the last thing that happened was, you know, uh we were having a drink at this point, and we were having a drink at this point, and we were deciding, go back to the cars, and people had parked in different places, so we were kind of starting to say our goodbyes. And one of the females in the group and her boyfriend had left, and we were just like, okay, well, we were kind of wrapping it up now and trying to laugh it off a little bit, and it wasn't too bad, and I wasn't laughing though. I remember being quite perturbed that I had had some real experiences, and it wasn't weighing well on me. It was really disturbing me.
I once heard a demonologist say that all of those types of things are wonderful and fun and fascinating when you're at home eating chips in your bed and reading a book. But when you find yourself actually in a basement of a home where they say there are demons and you start hearing noises, for instance, it's not fun anymore.
Yeah, this wasn't cool anymore. I mean, it was cool at the start, and it was a little scared fun. Oh, like a little some Halloween fun, a little bit of scared fun. It wasn't fun no more. I'd seen enough and felt enough, and I was worried that these things could actually hurt me, and I was concerned. But anyway, the last part of the story, perhaps is the fun part. Um, we hear this noise, and I hear a cat, and it's unmistakably a cat. I've had cats my whole life, and I thought it was weird. This cat's crying like this in the woods. It must, maybe it's lost or something. So I get compelled to go forward through the woods, even a little bit out of the way we were going to go to the car. And I spy there's a group of devil worshippers out there that are getting ready to sacrifice these cats, a cat and her kitten. I can't abide this now. I couldn't abide it then. Uh, these people, I could tell from the haphazard, the unprofessional setup of the circle and the ritual area that this is dabblers, but they're dangerous. Uh, Creepy places and beget creepy people, like I said before. And, these scumbags are about to do something terrible. And I said to my couple friends, and I was just like, well, I'm not going to let this happen. And they were just like, why don't you make yourself known and we're going to circle around? And I was just like, excellent, let's do that. And I can hear them arguing about who's going to do what and how this should be done and da 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 da. And I break their circle and I ask the guy, so what demon is this sacrifice dedicated to? And when I got stunned silence, and they can't believe somebody just walked in on them and then somebody actually said something to them that didn't just freak out and run because they're dressed in black and they're creepy. I went ahead and I broke the circle and I started walking in and I just said to them, well, it's too bad nobody taught you the read because now you're in deep shit. And we had a fight with these Satanists, which wasn't too much of a fight. They fled rather quickly and they got roughed up a bit. There was nothing too serious, but I got the cat, which is what I was concerned about. And these were wild cats. I was concerned these were somebody's pets and I was going to try to return them. And these were wild cats. I could tell by the way that they were carrying on and hissing. And the poor little things just had their, scared to death. They knew something terrible was about to happen. So anyway, that wraps up the tale after the fight with the Satanists, and I ended up scraping all their paraphernalia they left into a bonfire and burning it. And you know, I set the cats loose because they were wild and they weren't someone's pets. I had no way to try to do anything else, so I just let them loose, and I was ready to go home. Fun's fun and everything, but this was not fun. And when I saw these stupid devil worshippers and the stuff that they were doing, it just triple confirmed in my mind that this was a really bad idea. That these people, this place is bringing all these kinds of bad people, and that no matter what, evil's going to beget evil in this case. And I was glad to go home.